Ghost towns. Abandoned cities and towns with visible remains. What if? What remains is more than just rubble and forgotten Coke cans. Grab a blanket, turn off your lights, and get ready for 3 stories where there could be a ghost in Ghost Town. Ghost Town. My name is Chris. I live in Cairns, in far north Queensland, Australia. As a professional investigator of the paranormal, I travel the country researching and documenting paranormal phenomena. What you are about to read are actual case notes from one of my investigations that took place in the remote wastelands of far north Queensland. October 2006. Location: Maytown. History: former gold mining town in the 1800s. Source: State and National Archives. Case note: if you lived in Maytown, you died in Maytown. Maytown. The first payable gold was discovered there in 1873 by James Venture Mulligan. Word quickly spread throughout the land of extremely rich alluvial gold deposits. From its many creeks and streams, thousands of prospectors from all over the country quickly descended on Maytown, all seeking their fortune. Unfortunately, the harsh, unforgiving land did not give up its treasure so easily, and many miners perished in their pursuit for wealth and a better life. Now all that's left are a few scattered remains of what once a busy community, and as you stand on the fringe of the township, you can't help but to manifest and visualize a community struggling to survive in the ever-present shadow of poverty and hardship. Modern day, the town has an uneasy, eerie feeling about it, like you are being watched, and as you walk down the main street, you can feel the eyes of the townspeople following you, and you can't shake the feeling that you don't belong there and that you are not welcome. The following are my case notes that I later recorded after I was released from hospital following my incident during this investigation. 10:45 p.m. After completing my equipment check, I was about to walk up into the center of town, which was just short of a mile from base camp. Being alone in such a remote location had already put me on edge, but I had a job to do, so I focused on that fact and I went about my work. My plan was to leave one of the digital audio recorders at base camp to record my departure and my return and anything in between that time. As with any investigation, there are a lot of random photos taken of anything and everything, and this was no different. As I am about to leave the base camp, I attempt to take some photos and find that the camera is failing. Knowing that I already completed an equipment check with no problems, visible problems anyways, I began to recheck the settings on the camera. Somewhat annoyed with the camera, I had forgotten that I had started the audio recorder and it was capturing everything I was saying and everything around me. At 11:02 p.m., time taken from the audio recorder, you can hear a voice of unknown origin forcefully say, "We not happy photo." It was at that precise time that my camera was knocked out of my hands and I was hit with such a force that it knocked me to the ground. My first initial reaction was to get up, but when I found I couldn't because I was injured, I stayed down. It was another 2 days before the pickup vehicle came to get me. When they arrived, they found me down in the river in the cool wet sand under a paper bark tree. On my return to Cairns, I was in such a pain that I was taken straight to the Cairns Base Hospital, where x-rays were done, and they showed 3 exploded discs in my lower back. When asked by the doctor how it happened, I had no answer. Hauntings in an abandoned town. This story is about a rather small abandoned town. This town is called Old Dora. Now, I know I have mentioned this town before, but in that story I only talked about what was going on inside the old Methodist church there. This time, I'm going to tell you some of the things that happened in and around the other buildings around Old Dora. I guess we'll first start off with the old furniture store. Me and my cousin Sean had been ghost hunting a few weeks back, so we decided to go and check out some of the old buildings in the forgotten town. So we hopped into my car and drove down there. We parked in front of the old furniture store. We couldn't go in the top floor. It was falling in, and we didn't want to risk having it fall in with us. So we went back behind the building to find an open basement door. We walked inside, and there was an instant chill in the air. Well, we started walking around, trying to communicate with the spirits and such. And then I walked in the middle of the basement. There was nothing around me that I could have snagged myself on. I have a wallet chain, and as I was standing there looking towards the stairs that went up to the first floor, I felt a tug at my chain. I looked back to see if it was Sean, but Sean was on the other side of the room. I looked down in time to see my chain hovering in the air beside my waist, but then it fell back into place. I told Sean about it excitedly, so we decided maybe to go up the stairs to the first floor and see if we could see anything. So I start walking up the stairs, and as soon as I reach the top one, Sean goes, "Whoa!" And then he jumps down and starts running towards the back of the room. I asked what it was, and he said he saw a black shadow-looking figure crouching down, and as soon as he noticed it, it took off. But there was nothing in the room, and nowhere it could have hid. There is a building right beside the furniture store, but this place is locked up tightly. Well, we decided to joke around, so I knocked on the wood they had placed over the windows and said, "Anybody home?" As soon as I finished my sentence, something knocked back at us. It couldn't have been someone messing around because this building has been locked up since the town was first abandoned. And it's locked up so securely, I doubt anyone could have gotten inside. Now, for our last portion of the story, the train station. The top floor of this building is completely rotted away, so we shimmied our way down over the stairs leading down to the basement. The stairs looked like something out of a horror movie. They were tilted to the side. Well, we walked down there to find that the floor was now nothing more than a huge pile of rubbish. I hopped over onto the old mattress and stared up at the large hole in the ceiling, which would have been the first floor's floor. And suddenly, from the opposite direction of the door, meaning whatever did this was on the other side of the very large hole no one could get across. I'm just standing there, and I hear these footsteps. Soft at first, but as they neared the large hole, they got heavier. And an old magazine fell from the hole and landed on my feet. It was an old Time magazine. Well, that pretty much wraps up some of the things that's happened to me in that old abandoned town. Hope you liked it. Be safe, and happy hauntings. Something in the ghost town. First, let me start off by saying that yes, I am a teenager, but please do not take this as an excuse to discredit my story. This story is true. It is as true as you sitting at your computer right now, reading this, or listening to this. Next, I will say, I come from a very religious household. My mom especially is insistent that ghosts do not exist. She has told me that all paranormal activity is due to demonic activity. I have always been sensitive to other things. Maybe if my mother had not stifled my sensitivity, I would have become a medium. For example, when I was very young, I had a reoccurring dream of a witch in my wall. To this day, I remember every detail of the dream. I would be staring at the wall, it would open onto a forest with yellow birds in the trees, and the yellow birds would turn into 2 yellow eyes. My point of view would pan back, and I would see this woman dressed in black with yellow eyes laughing at me in a cruel voice. I would always wake up screaming. This dream would happen every Sunday night. When I was a little older, I developed an obsessive fear of my ceiling, where the wall and ceiling joined in the corners of the room. This was about the time when I started to hear the voices. They would whisper my name quickly and quietly. I still hear them. It's not frightening, but I will save the stories of my childhood for another time. Anyways, this is the story of something that happened to me that I cannot explain. When I was about 14, my family and me were visiting my grandparents in Phoenix, Arizona. My mom decided we needed to go see some ghost towns to better understand history. We went off to Flagstaff and to a ghost town gold mine called Vulture Rock or Vulture City. This whole place is creepy as heck. I have 3 younger brothers. My second youngest brother, Sean, was creeped out like me, but my other brothers, Mike and Aaron, were not that uncomfortable. We arrived at 9 a.m. or so, and my family and I walked around the town for a while. It's laid out like, first you go to the owner's office, and then drive down this dirt road to the actual town. Apparently, this place was pretty huge in its heyday. I think they mined most of the US's gold and silver for the mint there. Around World War II, they shut it down, and all the miners left to fight in the war. No one ever came back. So we're all walking around the town, and the first thing we went to was the original mine shaft. It goes 60 degrees down into the earth for half a mile, I think. You can still see mine car tracks. As we started walking towards it, I had this feeling like I was walking through water or something really heavy. It was hard to move my legs. I felt both drawn to and repelled by the hole, if you can imagine that. Sean didn't like it either, and we decided to leave and go to the glory hole. This is the site of a really bad accident. See, stealing gold from the mines was punishable by hanging. This particular mine area was carved out of the rock, and pillars of stone held it up. 9 guys decided they would go sneak back after dark and ship gold ore out of the pillars. Little by little, the pillars weakened until one night when the entire mine came crashing down on the miners and their 11 donkeys. No one ever tried to get the bodies back, and it still crumbled in the hole to this day. So Sean and I are standing at the edge of the hole, looking down, and I turn to say something to him. His eyes get big as heck, and he points with his mouth wide open. I look down and just catch with the other corner of my eye this whitish form. And just like that, it is gone. We didn't hang around there anymore. It wasn't fog or mist. This is Arizona desert at 10 in the morning and the end of November. Next, we went to the actual town itself. Nothing else weird happened until we went to the hanging tree. This is an old ironwood tree that they hung people from. Supposedly 18 men got hung from it as punishment for stealing gold. But I think in reality, only a few guys were hanged, and it was for rape or murder. The tree's right across from the sheriff's office. Aaron and I walked under the tree to look at something. I can't remember what. And suddenly Aaron was grabbing his chest and coughing. I asked him what was wrong, and he said he couldn't breathe and something was pressing on his chest. I grabbed him and dragged him from under the tree. Keep in mind that this is an 8-year-old boy and he doesn't make stuff up. Sean and I didn't tell him about the hole either. We told Mom, but she thought we were pulling her leg. She didn't believe us and insisted that we see the rest of town before leaving. The 3 of us, me, Sean, and Aaron, wanted to get the heck out of Vulture Rock. Lastly, we went to this area where Ore was ground up for refining. There was so much junk in there, it was crazy. It was a half-open building, kind of like a pole barn, with the roof about 9 feet up. There were old conveyor belts and buckets, and rusty machinery. Up on the roof, I heard this board creaking. I didn't pay attention until it struck me that there was no good reason for a board to swing. There was no wind. It was a very still day. I looked up and I see that the board is not just swinging, but it would swing and stop and swing again and then stop out to the sides, freeze, right, left, freeze, and then freeze again. Sean was right under it. He also heard it and looked up. Right as he did, the board literally just yanked from the wall, floated for a split second, and hit the ground with way more force than it should have. Sean leaped back right in the nick of time, looking really freaked out. We stared at each other and considered telling Mom, but decided she wouldn't believe us. Not 2 minutes later, I was by the conveyor belt looking at some old tools, and I feel this very light tug on my jacket. "Aaron, cut it out," I said, thinking he was playing a prank on me. Aaron popped his head around the corner and goes, "What'd you say?" I froze and scanned the room. My parents were outside, Aaron was in front of me, Mike was looking at something off to the left, and Sean was with Aaron. My whole family was in my immediate line of vision, so who yanked on my sweater? And then, again, like a little kid trying to get my attention, 2 sharp little tugs. I turned and looked down at my butt. And there, right where my jacket hits my butt, my jacket is pulled out. I mean, it was held out like someone was holding it, but there was no hand. And then as I'm watching, it pulls again. I screamed bloody murder, ran out of that shed, and stayed with my dad the entire rest of the time. The funny thing was, when we got back to Florida a week later, I opened up an Arizona Highways magazine, and there was an article on Vulture City Gold Mine. It was an article written by a bunch of paranormal explorers, and they went in and experienced stuff in the machine shed too. Apparently, a little boy who had his head looped off by a conveyor belt in the 10s or 20s, he's supposed to haunt that area. I remember I had read that issue of the magazine before, but I could not remember anything about the paranormal activity until I got home. I knowed I'd have to have read it, but I didn't remember reading it the first time, and I still don't. It was the weirdest thing. Sometimes I wonder if I should have talked to the little boy. Maybe he just wanted a friend. Maybe he didn't like my brother, but he liked me. At that time, Sean and I were fighting all the time. Who knows? One thing is for sure, though. I'm not going back to Vulture City to find out.